Thank you. Participants who would like to ask questions are requested to raise their hands. I repeat, participants who would like to ask questions are requested to raise their hands. So we have a question from the line of Mr. Siddharth Doshi. Mr. Doshi, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead and ask your question, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this presentation and the insights provided. So I have one question. Right now, all assessee who are challenging the notices or filing writ petition before the High Court, can High Court consider whether you explore the first option of approaching the tax officer and challenging the validity of notices? Can that be come up by the High Court, that you first approach the jurisdictional AO to discuss with him?
The High Court will not say approach the jurisdictional AO, but the High Court can very well say that you file whatever objections that you have before the NFAC. Let they decide the jurisdictional aspect of jurisdictional question, and thereafter, if they decide against you, then come to the High Court, because you are seeking remedy of extraordinary jurisdiction before the High Court. You can go to it as the last remedy. If you have an alternate remedy by which your issue can be resolved, the High Court would generally not entertain such petitions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mr. Navneet Singhal. Mr. Singhal, your line has been unmuted. Please unmute it from your end and ask your questions.
Yeah, just I want to ask that there has been amended provision from 1st of April. So from 1st of April, new provision will be applicable. So under the new provision, whether the notice can be issued under 148 for more than, there is assessment year 13, 14 or 14, 15. So for that, whether under the new provision, notice can be issued?
Sir, as I said, according to me, the way the law stands today, assuming there is no income represented in the form of asset, that is to say there is no undisclosed assets, for the assessment year 13, 14, 14, 15, the notices cannot be issued, because the amended provisions merely permit the assessing officer to issue notices within 3 years from the end of the assessment year. So that period would have expired much before. However, in case of undisclosed assets, because the period mentioned is 10 years, and of course the department can effectively go up to 6. So for those, then in that case, the notices can be issued.
That is, after 1st of April 2021, ordinarily they cannot issue a notice. But we have seen in hundreds of cases the department is issuing a notice. And as Karan explained, that is because of incorrect interpretation of the department, that they had time till 30th of June 2021 to issue a notice by virtue of the ordinance and the circular issue. That is the precise question and challenge before the High Court as to whether the circular can extend the time period prescribed in the legislation. To validate that, there is a foreseeable certainty of the Parliament coming in with an amendment to say that the repeal of Section 148 will be effective only from 1st of July, not from 1st of April, possibly. So as the law stands today, it is impossible, but there is something to suggest that the law will be amended retrospectively to validate such notices.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from the line of Mr. Ashok Sharma. Mr. Sharma, your line has been unmuted. Please go ahead and ask your question, sir.
Yeah, good evening for an excellent exposition on the subject. Hello.
Sir, you would have studied this 100 times.
No, I have not studied it. Otherwise, I would not have attended this. Just a small question, because we are discussing at various forums. This income representing in the form of an asset, at what point of time it should be seen? Suppose there are foreign traveling expenses, say more than for the full family have spent it more than 50 lakhs of rupees. So as on today, you cannot say there is any asset, but that time there was an asset in the form of either bank balance or cash, and the amount was spent away. So whether this provision will be applicable?
Sir, my answer will be like this. If we see the series of sections in 68, 69, we have the provisions relating to unexplained investments.
Yeah.
9 CM. when income earned by an unexplained source, as we have seen in many cases, is, for example, spent on wedding of son or daughter, it cannot be regarded as an unexplained investments. And one of the select committee report notes that income tax officers in those days used to send their inspectors to wedding venues to estimate the amount of expenditure being incurred by the assessee. And this statement forms part of the Enquiry Committee report of 1972. I think in the Vanchu Committee report or Mahavir Tyagi Committee report notes this point and says income tax department should discourage such an activity. I'm pointing this out to say that the legislature is conscious of the distinction between an unexplained investment and an unexplained expenditure. Because assessee successfully argued before the courts that money spent on daughter's wedding cannot be regarded as unexplained investment. Therefore, section was amended to bring in unexplained expenditure as a specific charge. Now the provisions relating to reopening restrict themselves to unexplained investments. And in my reading, the unexplained investment should exist on the date on which the assessing officer forms his belief to issue the notice. It can be distributed after that date, but once the investment exists on the date on which the notice is issued, then the officer will get jurisdiction in my reading of the section, sir.
Okay, if that is the case, then it is okay. Otherwise, there was very much unexplained investment was there, means in the form of bank balance, or in the, as I said, there is an evidence that I had unexplained cash, but that was on that date when the expenditure was incurred. So according to you, that will not
in my view, that will not be a determining factor, sir. Because
Right.
cash and bank balance are per se not investments. That's a form of realizing the consideration.
No, I have deposited, I have invested in bank account. I say it was FD, I have withdrawn that FD and spent on foreign travel. So
FD can be an investment.
So that was there, but your answer is that it should exist on the date of issue of notice.
Yes, sir. My reading of the sections.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from the line of Mr. Ankit Garg. Mr. Ankit Garg, please go ahead and ask your question. Your line has been unmuted.
Thank you, sir. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes. So my query is that suppose if the assessor receives the notice and following the GK and right short judgment, he files the ITR and requests for the reasons instead of challenging the notice itself at that stand, and then after receiving the objections, if along with the objections it challenges the validity of the notice, do you see any risk from element of that same before the High Court?
No. The only possible argument the other side would have is you already sought alternate remedy before the officer, but this alternate remedy is sought by us under protest, as Karan pointed out earlier. You will first raise an objection to the assessing officer saying that prima facie we believe that you don't have jurisdiction. In any case, give me the reasons recorded for you, because today if the assessing officer issues a notice under 148, you don't know whether he is issuing under the new scheme or the old scheme. The notice will simply say that I'm issuing a notice under 148.
But it says that I have sufficient reasons to believe, and that shows a intention that he is opening under the old regime.
This is presumption only. How do you validate the presumption? If the assessing officer comes to the court and says, I issued this notice only under the new section, then you have to go and separately challenge that if you are issuing a notice under the new section, you did not proceed under the provisions of 148 or 148A rather. To avoid separate challenges of different actions, it is better you file your objections before the officer, get the reasons recorded, have the reasons recorded disposed of, and thereafter go to the High Court. In a couple of cases, we have even seen when we raised an objection before the assessing officer got the reasons recorded and all, we saw the amount that the assessing officer thinks has escaped assessment is less than 1 lakh. So even under the old law, the assessing officer does not have jurisdiction. When you point out, he dropped the proceedings. Why do you want to rush to the High Court in such instances? That's what we want.
Thank you. Very well explained. The related question here is that suppose the notice was issued before 30th June, can the can the department take a plea before the High Court that if assessee would have challenged the notice itself on section 148A, we would have given the opportunity well within the time before 30th June. But the assessee deliberately waited for the barring of the timelines of 30th June and then challenged the legality.
The statutory right of an assessee is to appeal, not to go before the High Court. Going before the High Court is an extraordinary situation. An exception cannot be made a rule.
So you say that risk is ruled out. Definitely,
absolutely ruled out. Ask them to pay for the lawyer's fees to go to High Court. Then you can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the final question. There are no more raised hands. I would like to hand over the mic to the speakers for closing comments, if any.
I believe, as we discussed, there are some serious issues as far as the notices that have been issued after 31st March 21 is concerned. We believe that rather than immediately rushing, it is better to first consult your tax expert and file your protest letters and then file the ITR, seek the reasons. Rather than going to High Court on piecemeal basis, because just challenging the earlier, just challenging the notices and thereafter seeing that it may be based on change of opinion, there may be other issues as far as notices are concerned, sanctions are not obtained, etc. That may not be right. The best remedy is file your protest letters, file ITR, seek reasons. After having received the reasons, take a reasonable call as to whether it is a fit case to go before High Court, whether there is income that is represented in the form of asset, and based on that, challenge it. And if there is an ordinance that is subsequently introduced, the fine print of the ordinance will play a significant role on the matters that will be pending before High Court. And there may be arguments to challenge that the ordinance may not be able to validate the notices, but again, it will be based on the fine print and the perusal of the fine print of the ordinance. I think with this, we would like to thank all the participants for joining the call. Thank you and have a good day.
I would like to thank you and appreciate my gratitude to all the distinguished speakers from Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan who have taken their valuable time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. I'm sure their valuable thoughts, insights, and experiences will enable all of you to understand the impact of this decision. On behalf of LNS, I would like to thank you all, especially as speakers. We are looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you, everyone.